Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Mountain Harmony Gardening. I'm Kristen, and today we're going to be talking about what plants you do not want to plant together. In last week's video, we talked about companion planting, and companion planting is planting plants together for a beneficial effect. But there's also an opposite side to it. There are certain plants you do not want to plant together. And the first plant that we're going to talk about is tomatoes. So tomatoes do not do well with corn because they are both attacked by the same worm. Also, kohlrabi, cabbage, cauliflower, fennel all stunt tomatoes' growth. So do not plant that near tomatoes either. And potatoes and tomatoes both get blight. So there are a few that you do not want to plant with tomatoes. The next plant we're going to talk about is cucumbers. And you do not want to plant sage, potatoes, or aromatic herbs near your cucumbers. I was surprised about the aromatic herbs because usually they help plants, but for cucumbers they do not. They stunt their growth. So do not plant your basil near your cucumbers. Brassicas also compete with cucumbers for nutrients in the soil, so keep your brassicas like broccoli and cauliflower away from your cucumbers. Melons and squashes can get some of the same diseases that cucumbers get. They're in the same family, so it makes sense. But I have always planted my vining melons near my cucumbers, and I haven't had any issues. So definitely try it out in your garden and see what happens. Tomatoes attract some of the same pests that affect cucumbers and the tomatoes, so do not plant them near your cucumbers. Last year, I think my cucumbers were a little bit too close to my tomatoes, and a guest just walked in. Let me grab her. Hi. Hey everybody, this is Socks. I think this is her first official time besides a short on camera, so had to show you her. I love to grow squash plants like pumpkins and spaghetti squash in my garden. And they are affected by potatoes, sweet potatoes, which are in a different family than the potatoes, and brassicas because they all compete for nutrients in the soil, so you do not want to plant them near squash plants. I've also read that you do not want to plant other squash plants together or melons together. You want to kind of keep them separated, but I've always planted them right next to each other, and by the end of the year they all kind of are getting powdery mildew in our area, and I just cut off the leaves and the plants still turn out just fine. Donnie's favorite plant to have in the garden is hands down peppers. We have tons and tons of peppers in our yard, and they are affected by fennel, kohlrabi, both stunt their growth. Brassicas also will stunt their growth because they're such heavy feeders and compete, so you definitely don't want to have any of those near your peppers. I also read eggplant, but I haven't found that one to be true because I planted my eggplants in with my peppers last year and they did just fine. And also another thing is apricot trees. I was kind of surprised to think that anybody would plant peppers under apricot trees, but sometimes peppers can get a fungus disease that will spread to your apricot trees. I wouldn't recommend planting peppers under trees. They need full sun. The new plant that I am growing this year is broccoli, and there are definitely a lot of plants you do not want to plant with broccoli because it's a heavy feeder and it takes a long time to grow. You want to avoid mustard, dill, nightshades like tomatoes, and strawberries. Those all compete with broccoli. Corn is also another heavy feeder, so you do not want to plant two heavy feeders right next to each other. And also plants that vine, get tall or bushy, also compete for sunlight with the broccoli, so you do not want to plant those with them either. A plant that I will not be planting this year is corn, but I've grown it in the past. And there's a few that you do not want to plant around corn, such as celery, tomatoes, broccoli, or any of the brassicas, because they are all heavy feeders and they compete with the corn. Last year I had some lettuce come up on its own, and I'm hoping they'll do it again this year, but I am trying some new varieties as well. And there are a few plants that you do not want to plant with your lettuce. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, so pretty much the brassica family. Kohlrabi, which seems to stunt everything's growth, is what you do not want to be growing with your lettuce. They also mentioned kale, but I've grown kale with my lettuce before and they both have done fine. I've mentioned potato in a lot of these I've commented on today, and I think the reason is because it's such a heavy feeder, and also you have to dig the potatoes up. So what I found was asparagus, or pretty much any sort of perennial vegetable, you do not want to plant with potatoes because you're going to be disturbing their root system. Another one is any sort of root crop like carrots, beets, anything like that that you have to dig up, you do not want to plant next to potatoes either. So parsnips, trying to think of anything else. Kohlrabi, again, I don't think it plays well with anybody. So I would definitely plant it probably in its own container. Fennel is another one, and I plant fennel in my little cinder block so it's away from other plants. And tomatoes, because they both get blight. And also sunflowers will block out the sun from the potatoes, so you don't want to plant those together either. I hope this gives you an idea of some of the plants that you do not want to be planting together. So check out last week's video to see what you can plant together, and then combine it with this week's video so you know what not to plant together. I appreciate each and every one of you, so please do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. And if there's a topic that you guys want me to talk about, let me know in the comments and I will definitely talk about it for you. We could even do a question and answer sometime if you guys like. So thanks for watching again, and happy gardening!